Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to begin the next part of the program. So if you could begin returning to your seats as quickly as possible, we can continue.
Today is an important date for Arlington, Virginia, and our nation. Yes, it was on February 2nd, 1959, when under the protection of 85 police officers, Ronald Deskins, Michael Jones, Lance Newman, and Gloria Thompson, who couldn't come today, our local heroes, entered Stratford Junior High School. The inequities and the battle against segregated public education prior to the Supreme Court decision known as Brown versus the Board of Education was long and arduous. The integration at Stratford Junior High School, as all of you have seen the video, represented the end of massive resistance in Virginia. It was nationally significant as the first integrated public school in Virginia. And we are happy today not only to have our courageous heroes, but we also have other heroes, like the teacher, Martha Miller, who at 104 is here, very happy. To see her students, and Dr. Alfred Taylor, our community historian who has researched Arlington African American community, and he reminds us, we have to understand where we have come from so that we can appreciate where we're going. And yes, today we also have Drew Costley, who is going to be a graduate of H.B. Woodlawn, will be our moderator. Sharon Monde, APS student, graduate, and who also was a former APS teacher and administrator, and Carmela Hamm, the daughter of the late Dorothy Hamm, Arlington civil rights leader. Yes, it is important for all of us to keep Arlington history alive and to remember the tireless effort and struggle made by so many who came before us. Today, we want to spend some time remembering those events and paying tribute to the heroes in our community who fought for change. But before I begin, I'd like to introduce a few people who have joined us today. So we have school board members. We have Nancy Van Doren, vice chair of the board. We have Dr. Barbara Cannonen. We also have Reed Goldstein. And we have Dr. Patrick Murphy, superintendent, and members of his executive leadership team, county board members, of course, the chair, Libby Garvey, who will be talking soon. We also have county board members, Jay Fissette, Katie Crystal, and I don't know if Mr. Christian is there. Oh, how are you, Christian? Mr. Christian. Dorsey, Mr. Christian Dorsey. And County Manager Mark Schwartz. As you see, all of us are united together to recognize and honor. And we also have many leaders in the community. We have many who have been our trailblazers, and we as elected school board members, we honor the fact that Arlington had an elected school board that helped us in the integration. To begin this evening program, I would like to invite Lisa Green to the stage. Lisa is a staff member in our extended day program. She's a native of Washington, D.C., and her love for singing started when she was a member of the Ballou Senior High School Choir, and she continues to sing with the Allen Chapter Amy Choir Voices of Praise. Tonight, we are pleased to have her share her talent and sing the Black National Anthem.
Good evening. Lift every voice and sing to loved in heaven. Ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening sky. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine could not join us this evening, but he has sent a short message for us. Let's listen to that now.
Hi, I'm Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, and I am delighted to be able to send greetings and share some words on such a historic anniversary for our Commonwealth. On February 2nd, 1959, Stratford Junior High School, which is now the site of H.B. Woodlawn, became the first public school in Virginia to integrate, to allow students of all races to attend. Over the next few years, it ushered in a wave of desegregation amongst educational institutions in the state. Today, Virginia is stronger and more equal because of the leadership of H.B. Woodlawn and the students and faculty and parents. I'm reminded of the time when I was serving as governor, when I visited H.B. Woodlawn to commemorate the 50th anniversary of this day in 2009. My wife, Ann Holton, was with me that day, and her family played an important role in ending racial segregation in the Commonwealth schools. Ann's father, Linwood Holton, served as Virginia's governor from 1970 to 1974. Up to the time he was elected governor, the Virginia governors previous to him had fought to maintain segregation. There were certain enlightened outposts like Arlington and H.B. Woodlawn, but across the state, many jurisdictions wouldn't open their schools. And the weight of the governor's office was squarely behind segregation rather than integration. Well, Governor Holton had an opportunity in his first year in office to enroll his 4 children into public schools in Richmond that were majority African American schools. He did this to send a message that education was important and that kids of different skin colors could all sit and learn together. There's a historic photo of him walking my wife's sister, Taylo, into John F. Kennedy High School on the first day of school. It was a front page photo in the New York Times. There had been many photos in that era, the civil rights era, of Southern governors blocking the schoolhouse door and keeping African American kids from coming in. But as far as I know, there was only one photo of a governor hand in hand with his daughter with big smiles on their faces, walking into integrated schools to show that all kids were equal and that education was the most important value of our community. That was a great sign of courage during a time when school integration was being met with strong resistance in Virginia and elsewhere. As we celebrate the 57th anniversary of Virginia school integration today, February 2nd, and as we celebrate Black history over the next coming weeks, let's honor the trailblazers of our past. America has come a long way in its march toward a more equal society, and Virginia has too. But we've still got a lot more to do. And as we reflect on our past, let's remember that when we open the doors of opportunity and equality for all children, we build a stronger future for all America. Thanks so much.
Thank our organizing committee, and I want to especially mention Sandra Green, who's here. School community relations from Arlington Public Schools has been a great supporter. Thank you very much for all your work, as well as our community partners who joined with Arlington Public Schools to help organize today's celebration. They include Arlington County Government, the Arlington chapter of the NWCP, and the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington, Virginia. Now I would like to ask our County Board Chair, Libby Garvey, to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you for your leadership and enthusiasm and helping to bring tonight's special event to fruition. And thank you so much for asking me to participate. My colleagues on the County Board and I are honored to be here with you all tonight, the community, and so many extraordinary guests. A lot of people have been introduced. There's one person I would like to recognize that hasn't been yet recognized, and that's Joan Mulholland, who's a freedom fighter and literally risked her life. Freedom rider. It's amazing what sort of ordinary people can do, and we're going to hear from them in just a little bit, because here we are exactly 57 years to the day since local, state, and national history was made here in Arlington in this school. And we must not forget what it was like for our community, our students, and their families on that day 57 years ago. I very much look forward to the discussion tonight and hearing from 4 of the former students who braved threats and cruel prejudice to help open our schools and our community to everyone. They truly helped make Arlington what it is today. And it was not easy, as we will hear from them in just a bit, and I really do look forward to it. This was a moment that shaped us as a community. It's important we remember it today and future generations, and it's really a gift that we have these folks with us here tonight. Thank you all so very much.
And finally, let me introduce our moderator for this evening, Mr. Drew Costley. Drew attended Arlington Public Schools. He's a graduate of H.B. Woodlawn, and most notably, he's the nephew of Sandra Green. And Drew received a degree in journalism from the University of the District of Columbia, and he's currently the news editor for the Falls Church News Press. Thank you for your assistance this evening, Drew, and I will turn the podium over to you.
Thanks, Emma. So I think Emma did a pretty good job of introducing everybody. I'll just run through it one more time. First, I just want to thank the county for inviting me to do this. And this is, I think, the first time that I've been in this auditorium since my graduation day in 2004. So it's sort of a mind blower to be here. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity. So just to introduce our panelists first, we have 3 of the students who integrated Stratford Junior High here tonight. Michael Jones Lance Newman and Ronald Deskins. They traveled both near and far to be with us today. We are so honored that you're here. Then we have Dr. Alfred O. Taylor, Jr. He's an educator, civic activist, and leader, community historian, and author of the newly published Bridge Builders of Knock, Green Valley, Past and Present. We have Sharon Monde, an Arlington Public Schools graduate who made her career with APS, serving as a foreign language teacher, minority achievement coordinator, and principal of Thomas Jefferson Middle School. We have Martha Miller, a former teacher at Stratford Junior High School during the time of integration and author of her memoir entitled The First Century. And we have Carmela M. Hamm, formerly with Commonwealth Public Broadcasting, where she directed broadcasts of the Virginia State Senate. She's also a documentary filmmaker and daughter of Dorothy M. Bigelow Hamm, a leader in Arlington's struggle to integrate its public schools. So I want to start off with a question for Dr. Taylor. What was it like for African American students in Arlington before desegregation occurred?
Well, I graduated, went to school a few years before the schools were integrated. I went to Arlington Public Schools until the 3rd grade. At completion of 3rd grade, my parents transferred me to Washington, D.C. schools. Mainly because in the Washington, D.C. schools, I would have more choices of careers of what I was aspiring to take. The thing that was most interesting that I had to catch the bus from Green Valley, ride past Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry on the way to Stevens Elementary School at 21st and K Street. The thing about one of the reasons they were products of the DC public schools themselves, it was only for, as I said, like to give me more choices. Nothing was wrong with the teachers. We had excellent teachers in the Virginia school system at that time, but the schools were a little crowded. Multiple grades in a classroom. And at Stevens Elementary School, we had the opportunity to change classes the same as you would in a junior high school and go to specialists. So that was one of the reasons that they pulled me from the Arlington Public Schools, only to better my education. Although I attended the Washington, D.C. schools, I had invaluable assistance from the teachers in the Arlington Public Schools who lived within the neighborhood and was always there ready to assist me.
Can you talk a little bit more about the assistance that you got from teachers in the Arlington public school system?
The assistance you got, well, the neighborhood was more, we hear the coin phrase, it takes a village. I think that all of the African American communities were truly villages at that time. Everybody, was the extended family. Everybody was Uncle John, Aunt Jane, Cousin Sue, what? And that really meant they had all privileges appertaining to your rear end if you got out of line. But the thing about it is you saw the teachers at church, in the grocery store, and there was always a genuine concern. How were you doing in school? Teachers were not afraid to come knock on your door and tell your parent that you acted up a little bit in school. So it was more of a nurturing environment, more so then than it was today, because the teachers really seemed to care, really seemed to be dedicated to bringing the best out of you. and was not afraid to go to all means ends, regardless of how long it took, in order to get it from you.
Thanks. So we have some questions for Michael, Lance, and Ronald. First, tell us what your first few months were like as new students at Stratford. I'm going to start with Lance.
Sure. Oh, why me? Well, this is the first time I've been back in this building since I think I graduated from 9th grade in, 1961. But anyway, the first few months, well, let's just start at the first week. I think you saw in the film all the preparation that we had and all and the support we got from our parents and the community leaders. But on that day, I remember going down or getting into Mr. Jones's car, Michael's father's car, driving down Lehigh Highway through Old Dominion Drive, and we were dropped off at the street, across the street. I mean, on the far side of the street. We walked across the street, and there was a ton of cops, and they all had helmets or something. Anyway, that sticks out in my mind. And we walked down, and we walked in the. Now there was some dispute, but I think it was the back entrance. Went to Mr. Richmond's, or the Principal Richmond's office, gave some instructions, and then we went to the class. Ronnie and I went to one. Mr. Ware's math class, and I think Michael and Gloria went to another class. And like Ronnie, I think Ronnie mentioned this, but you walked in, they opened the door to the class, and there was all these students there, and there was a lot of tension. When I say a lot of tension, there was a quietness, and Mr. Ware came up and introduced us, and then sat us on our respective tables, our desks, and then the instruction began, and it was sort of it was nervous, but it wasn't overwhelming, I could say. And I do remember at the end of the class, the period change, and you go out into the hall, and there's mass of humanity, all white, in the halls, and I was confronted for the first time, but there was no, like I said, there wasn't any real hostility. There were people that were curious. There was some stares, and it was somewhat uncomfortable, but. All in all, I must say, things went very well, considering. There was, we had been told, what to expect and what could happen, but none of that happened. And I just think that it was an enlightening experience. I didn't really realize the significance of it at the time, and later, I come to realize in talking to my parents and talking to other people and seeing things like this, the significance of the event at that time. Back in '59. Of course, I was only 12 years old, but anyway. But sort of, I'm rambling here, but that's sort of what I remember the first week. And then, as the semester progressed, we got more and more comfortable, and started making some, friends, and a few in particular. And at the end of the year, I think all of us can say we were pretty comfortable, for the most part, in our environment at Stratford.
Michael,
Okay.
How were the first months for you?
I have to echo what Lance said, but looking back, I'm just thankful for a lot of things that went well during that period of time. Number one, I'm thankful for my parents.
I actually don't know why they got me involved in this, because they were busy enough otherwise with the family we had. I had an older brother. I have a younger brother and 4 younger sisters. And all of us were, I was 12 at the time, and my younger sister was actually, my mother was about 9 months pregnant at the time, so why they want to get me involved with this at the time, I don't know. And they never really asked me, do you want to do this? They just said, you're going to do this. And that's what I did. I think because I did well in elementary school, they put my name forward. But in elementary school, we had great teachers. I mean, in elementary school, as I was saying before at lunch, we had a good effect on our teachers, because when we started in the first grade, we started with Miss Cooper. She ended up getting married and becoming Miss Best for the second grade, so we were fortunate her, and she ended up getting married. In the third grade, we started off Miss Reed. She ended up getting married, and she ended up being Miss Syphax. And so in the fourth grade, Miss Stewart, she was already married. Miss Richardson was our fifth grade teacher, and she was the wife of the principal of Hawthorne Boston, the Black High School, so she was great. And we had Miss Hill was a principal, a sixth grade teacher, and she had been there a while. In fact, she taught my mother, so that's how long she had been at school. So we had great teachers who instilled in us and gave us a good education so we could compete when we got to Stratford and other places. Also, the community was great. I mean, what I thought about was that school was tense. I mean, especially that first year, and because we're in the classrooms, no one else looked like us. It was just myself and Gloria, and was Ronnie and Lance together in the class. And so we were kind of on, I wouldn't say pins and needles, but we didn't have many friends at the time but ourselves. So I basically just did my work and went home and went back to the people I knew on the playground, in our community. So that made it not too bad, because I know, you just do your work and go home, and then you go back to the usual things you're doing. And the community support was great. We had our churches, Mount Salvation and Callaway in the community, and the leaders who helped us get there, Mrs. Hamm, as we talked about, Ms. Costley, and all, as we saw, and other leaders who helped us do what we need to do and prepared us through many, many training sessions on what to expect when you got to Stratford, and if this happened, do this, if that happened, do this. And there's really no incidents I can think about except for one later in the year where some kids used to, well, first, I think Ronnie and Lance warned us, me and Gloria, about what was going to happen when we walked down the highway, and I said, they said, this has never happened to us. And then a couple days later, someone did say something to us. So it was like a forewarning of what happened to us. But overall, it ended up being a good experience. The first year, like I said, was kind of tense, but otherwise it was a good year and set a good foundation for us. Thank you.
What about you, Ronald?
Yes. Well, I can reiterate that I think we were well prepared, and I attribute that to our parents and the community which we came from, which supported us always. It was tense, especially that first day. I had the pleasure of being in John's documentary, and what I said there kind of reflected the way I felt at the time. I was pretty nervous on that first day. We did have a couple of students in the class who had volunteered to show us around, to make sure that we got to other classes smoothly. Show us where the cafeteria was. I think on that first and maybe a few days, they even sat and ate with us. So for the most part, the other students were, I don't want to say indifferent, but they went on about their own business. Now, they may have been talking with each other privately, but there was no public display of either affection or, or animus or anything like that toward us. As the semester went on, because we started in February, but before the school year let out, we did encounter a few students, as Mike alluded to, who made it their business to try to make our lives miserable. They were not successful. Although they called us plenty of names, but it was always the same few individuals. And when I say a few, probably no more than 4 or 5. And many times you might see 2 or 3 of them in a group. And that, I can remember times of coming up the hall and I'd see a certain group standing near the end and I'd say, oh, geez, why did I come this way, you know? And, but that really, you know, kind of dissipated in the following year because there were quite a number of more black students that came to the school. And some of them may not have been to some of the passive resistance training that I'd been to. So so very shortly, all the name calling stopped, you know. So, yes. Now, the one thing that stands out in my mind as a thing that kind of plagued me during this time was the fact that we could not participate in sports. The school had sports teams, but at that time it was illegal in the state of Virginia for whites and blacks to participate in interscholastic sports together. And so even though the school had a basketball team, had a football team, but we were not able to participate. And also, all social activities at the school were cut off. In fact, those weren't really reinstated until my junior year in high school. But the social activities really didn't bother us because, as Mike alluded to, we came to school, but when we left, we went back to the community that we had grown up in, and where we knew everyone and everyone knew us, and we had plenty of social interaction there, and so we didn't really miss that. As Mike alluded to, going to school was kind of like going to a job, and then you go home after the job, and that's where your life begins. So it was a little bit like that, but I did miss the athletics. I was a person who really wanted to play sports, and the fact that we couldn't, that bothered me. But otherwise, for the most part, it was a very good experience. And looking back on it, it was an excellent experience because I think it has benefited me personally, many times over during my life.
Thanks, Ronald. So I have a few questions for Sharon Monde. Can you tell us about the advice and special training that black students received as they prepared to integrate Arlington's public schools?
One of the gentlemen said to me earlier when we were down there that I was part of the younger group. And I did not go to Stratford. I went to Swanson. And as they were talking, I was thinking about that trip over to Swanson. And although I wasn't a part of the first class, each class was like an orientation, because the way I remember it is I was coming from the Halls Hill community. I went to elementary school at Langston Elementary School. The white students were coming from schools that, in all honesty, I didn't even know existed. McKinley, Nottingham, you know, all of the schools that are in the north side of Arlington. We had no idea that those schools existed. So when I speak in terms of the orientation, I'm speaking about those of us who were at Langston and how we were prepared by our teachers to go over to Swanson in this case. And then, but the white students were coming from schools where there were no black students, so it's like there was constant integration going on with the students. So when you talk in terms of you know, the orientation, I mean, we did things at Langston, and I'm not going to tell this whole story, but very quickly I'll say they taught us how to eat. They taught us how to eat. They taught us to eat with a knife and a fork at all times. It didn't matter. If it was chicken, You ate it with a knife and a fork. They prepared our food there, and we practiced this until we got it right. And so I remember those in my class, as we came over to Swanson, we desperately waited for that moment to have the chicken. And that day finally came, and we began to debone our chicken with the knife and fork, and we looked around, and all the white students were picking up their chicken with their hands. So, you know, they wanted us to be right with things. They taught us social skills. Not only did they teach us education, we were taught social skills. And so we talked in terms of how to be the best. You always wanted to show folks wherever you went that you were from a community where people cared about you, and people that you saw all the time. You saw them they talked about in church. I mean, Miss Bess, Carol Bess, she was our choir director. So we saw her not only as our second grade teacher, but we also saw her as the choir director. But constantly making sure that we represented not only ourselves, but represented the community at the highest possible level.
Okay. Do you think your involvement in helping integrate Arlington's public schools impacted your decision to pursue education as your career?
That's a tough one. I'm not sure at first that it did. You mentioned that I was a foreign language teacher, and the way I got into that was when I went to Swanson, I had the best foreign language teacher, the best. And she made sure that I worked hard, and it was something that I was good at. And so I continued to pursue that, unlike Algebra 2, I had to take twice. But she pushed me in that direction, and I went that way. So once I completed by the time I finished high school, I knew at that point that I basically wanted to be like my French teacher. So that meant I wanted to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And so going to college, I went the education route.
Do you, I guess as a career educator, how have you seen integration impacting the students you've worked with throughout the years?
Well, students need to understand, and what I try to do is when I was in the classroom, when I was an administrator, I try to talk to students and make sure they understood the history. You know, as Dr. Taylor says, if you don't understand where and I'm paraphrasing, but if you don't understand where you came from, then you're not going to get very far. So when I worked with students, I tried to make sure that they understood where we came from, that things were not easy. And this is not just black students, these were all students, that things were not always easy for us, and that they needed to take education. The main thing was to take education seriously, to take it seriously. And in working with them, their parents, as an administrator, to make sure that we were all on the same page. We knew why we were here and what we were trying to accomplish. So I wanted to not only push students academically, but I also wanted them, like I had been pushed, to be pushed socially, to make sure that they understood how they should be carrying themselves at all times.
Okay. So I've got a few questions for Carmela. I want to start with, which written down here is the second question, but since Ronald and Michael were talking about students who came after them to Stratford, I wanted to ask about your older brother, Leslie, was part of the second integrating class at Stratford in September 1959. From what you know, were his experiences any different from those of Michael, Gloria, Lance, and Ronald?
Well, this was a very difficult time for my oldest brother. Actually, he's only spoken to me about his ordeal once in my adult life. It was difficult for him because he was separated from the children and the teachers that he was familiar with. Similar to, I guess, Michael's experience, he just did what he was told to do, but that did not necessarily mean that at 12 years old, that was what he wanted to do. I think that what occurred, see, there was a series of testing, psychological testing and other criteria that the students were exposed to and had to meet. And I can only imagine that being exposed to something like that at 12 and 13 years old must have been incredibly difficult. So I feel with, exactly, I feel with him, as with a few other students have expressed to me, it was hard for them during that time. They did what they had to do, they did what they were told to do. That did not necessarily mean they liked what they were doing or that the effects were all positive. But I think it helped to make them a more aware and stronger and better person, especially stepping out into society and dealing with the world as it was beginning to form.
Mm-hmm. So your mother was heavily featured in the documentary. Why do you think she had so much passion about and commitment to the integration of Arlington's public schools?
Well, a combination of reasons. First of all, my mother migrated to Arlington, well, to Fairfax County in 1926. She was 7. She came from Caroline County, which was the area where the Loving family was the first integrated couple in Virginia that went to the Supreme Court to legalize their marriage. When my mother moved to Fairfax, they had a very similar to Dr. Taylor's situation. They had a small schoolhouse, 1 room or 2 rooms, where several classes were combined, different age students. When my mother married my father and they built a house in Arlington, my brothers were 3 and 5 when they moved into the neighborhood. And it seemed to be that people were beginning to hopefully live the quote-unquote American dream. But it wasn't happening fast enough. The decision for Brown v. Board was handed down in '54. The first suit that was filed in Arlington within our community was filed in 1956, and that was in the name of Gloria Thompson, who was Gloria's eldest sister. By the time we went through the process that was required of us to attain the status of desegregating the schools, Clarissa was in college, and then the suit became in my oldest brother's name. And one of the reasons that my mother was so adamant about doing this is because, not because of my eldest brother, but the brother next to him, Bernard, would always ask my mother, why can't I? There was a pony ring in Cherrydale, and we could not go because it was, it was segregated, and he wanted to know, why can't I? When they started building Stratford, the new school, and they would drive past it, it was understood, my father was an architect, so it was understood that this was a school being built, and my brother was of the opinion that that's where they were going, but they couldn't. Why can't I? And those words from my brother Bernard, from what my mother explained to me, is what propelled her to really fight this cause.
Okay. And then we also have one of the teachers here who was a teacher at Stratford Junior High, Martha Miller, at the time of integration. I have some questions for you, too. What was your most memorable moment about Integration Day in February 1959? Martha?
Oops.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
I guess it's my turn now to talk.
Yeah.
I never in my long life have ever dreamed of ever speaking to a group of people as prestige group as it is tonight. So I am honored very much to be a part of this evening. And as I understood, my job was to tell what I remember about the integrating of the school. To begin with, I want to say that some of the people that brought the suit against the school board had helped work for good schools in the 40s when my husband and I and the Citizens Committee for School Improvements worked 4 hard years to get good schools in this county. The school board was elected. They were starting to get the schools improved. And yet, when 1954, when the Supreme Court said that all schools should be integrated, that was the time a lot of went on that I wasn't aware of even, with the different groups and everything, that I'm more, after seeing the video tonight, I'm more aware of what all was going on in the community. Now, one thing I was going to mention was that people from Halls Hill brought the suit against the school board because they were not integrating the schools. And they were not integrating the schools because they couldn't, because Virginia being a resisting state to integrating schools. And I only mentioned this again because Ed Campbell took the case, and he did ask Elizabeth whether he should do it or not. And I mention it because it was an indication of how the tense community was getting very tense over this whole situation. And so he did go ahead and take the case, and that's a part of the background. That took the case for the Halls Hill people bringing suit against the school board for not integrating the schools. So you've heard a lot about all that was going on. But the day of the integrating, on February the 2nd, 1959, when the students were coming to Stratford to integrate the school, they came in the furthest entrance from the office. And that was in the shop area, down below the auditorium here. My room that I was teaching in was the room right next to the lobby here for the auditorium. And as I remember it, they were brought here with the help of policemen and came into my room. Then they were taken to the office to get their assignments. And 2 were assigned to my class and 2 to another teacher. But what went on after the circuit court judge announced that there would be 4 black children come from Halls Hill to our school, from that time on, there was a lot of tension in the community. And there was a lot done to prepare for that day by the staff. One thing that it was mentioned earlier this evening, that the superintendent of schools and the principal of Stratford were Southern gentlemen, and they wanted to have nothing to do with it. So Mr. Richmond turned over to Doris Matthews as the assistant principal to handle the situation for that day. And in one of the things in preparation for the day was that Mrs. Matthews had all the 7th grade children come to the auditorium, and she explained to them what was going to happen. Well, Doris Matthews was such a wonderful disciplinarian, and the students loved her, and they respected her. And so she was telling them what would happen on the February the 2nd. At that time, she asked the students if there would be students volunteer to show the new students around. And there were always a lot of students that were willing to do that. So that the new students had somebody to show them where to go, what classes, and they, by the way, when they were in the class, that class stayed together all day. In other words, I had them for math, then they had English and social studies and the other subjects that was in their schedule. And they had their lunch period. And the Minturn children would take them around and keep them. Whenever they needed to go any place or do anything, they would be with them. And then, of course, that day, well, before that day, the guidance counselor and the assistant principal had gone to the homes to visit with the black boys and girls and tell them what was to be expected. So all that took a lot of preparation, and it took a lot of time, but that day, to me, it was just another day in the school system and school day.
Okay, Martha, I know you told me when we met not to cut you off, but I have to, because I have one more question for you.
I don't understand.
I just have one more question for you. As a teacher at Stratford at the time, what did you notice about how integration affected your classroom and the overall school environment immediately and then after, the school was integrated?
Yeah. Well, when the students came in, the teachers, well, by the way, one other thing I wanted to say. The principal of our school had asked the teachers if they were willing to teach the new students coming in. And I said, of course. They're just the same as all of us. And I'm very proud of the fact that I said that day because I became one of the teachers. But when the students were here, and during that day, we had to be at the door when a class was changed. We had to be at our door. We had to always have somebody go with a student if they needed to leave the room. Nobody left the room without permission. And another thing in getting ready for the day was that the teachers were given passes that we had to have, and the policemen were in the parking lot and walked the teachers to get in the building because they didn't want anything to happen to any of the teachers. And that started, I've forgotten how many weeks before the day of February the 2nd. And I understand that out in the community, there were as many as 120 policemen all through the community area and around our school. But then within the school, that day. As far as I was concerned, nothing really unusual happened. Everything went very smoothly, and I thought very well planned, and nothing happened. But there were parents in a house right next to the building that were there all day for fear something would happen. That's how tense the community was about the day. Now, if you have any other questions, I'd be glad to try to answer.
Well, I don't, but thank you. So now we have opportunity for people in the audience to ask questions of the panelists. There are going to be two people in each aisle. They just wave their hands in a staggered way. If you could raise your hands one more time and wave them. Those two people, just line up behind them and you'll be able to ask a question. So please come forward. People in the audience. I have other questions if no one in the audience has questions. Okay, wait. Is that one person right there? Yeah, she was up first. Okay, one of them.
Yes. Could the three veterans of this big event tell us a little about your careers in your later life?
You're gonna start with Lance and go down the row.
Let's see. I went to Stratford, and and then on the W&L, graduated from W&L, went to Howard University, got a degree in electrical engineering. Then I went out to California to work for North American Rockwell, an aerospace company at the time, and then got a master's at UCLA. And then I working for a couple of other companies. I finally landed with the Aerospace Corporation. That's the name of the company, the Aerospace Corporation, for 35 years. And I retired a year ago, but I'm still working as what they call a casual employee, because I can't. It's casual retiree, because I couldn't sit at home watching soap operas or whatever. And it keeps you busy, and it's sort of a social. But so that's pretty much my career, life story. Oh, I'm married. I have 2 kids.
That's like a weird footnote to leave out.
Yeah. Okay.
Ronald, what about you? Or Michael, what about you?
Like Lance and Ronnie, we went from Stratford to W&L. Graduated from W&L, I went to Howard for a year, and they said I needed to brush up on my studies, so I left there. And I was in the service after that. I went to the Army when I was serving in Vietnam for a tour. Out of Vietnam, came back and went to Northern Virginia for a couple of years. After I finished Northern Virginia, I went to Fordham University in New York. I ended up graduating from Fordham. After Fordham, I worked a couple of jobs. I ended up at a few years at Mutual of Omaha. I worked for Mutual of Omaha for 10 years, and from Mutual of Omaha, I moved from the Washington location down to, they moved up to Rockville. So I had a connection. I knew some people who worked for the CIA at the time. So I moved from the Mutual of Omaha to work for the CIA. So I worked from the CIA from I think it was 1988 till I retired 3 years ago. And so now I'm still working. Well, I retired, now I'm working on for an insurance company that has insurance for government employees. So I've been doing that part-time, doing very good 3 days a week, can't beat that. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, my wife and I live in Sterling, Loudoun County. I have 2 daughters. One's married, one still lives at home, works for a law firm. Oh, you don't need that.
Well, you already know that we graduated from W&L, 64. And like Mike, I went off to college, actually went on a football scholarship, stayed a couple of years. That was at Morgan State College in Baltimore. Stayed there 2 years, dropped out, worked just at, I can't even remember exactly what the job was at that point in time. And then went back to school, to another school, went to Carson Newman College, and went there a year, dropped out, went to work for Arlington Fire Department. And my father was also a firefighter at the time. And I think I was 21 then. And I wasn't finished, though, with school. Wasn't finished yet. When people ask me, where did you go to school, I usually say, where didn't I go? So I worked with the fire department there for a year and decided that I wanted to get in the movies. And so went out to California, stayed there for 3 years, never got in the movies. I did go finish some more schooling, went to Cal State, LA, also went to UCLA at night. And it was a strange thing because when I was in school, I didn't really, initially I wasn't a very motivated student. However, later on, I took as many as 11 credits while working a full-time job, took as many as 11 credits a semester at night and made straight A's. So I was motivated at that time. Came back this way after a year selling life insurance. Like I told you, it was like Mike. And then I went with Fairfax County Fire and Rescue, and I stayed there for over 34 years. And during that time, I completed a degree in public administration. And my short did numerous things in the fire department, everything from instructor, went through the ranks, ended up a station captain, but I taught a recruit school. I was an arson investigator. I spent a couple of years, I was given a leave of absence from the fire department, and I worked for the union, the International Firefighters Union, and went around the country setting up programs to recruit minorities and females into fire departments. When I left the fire department, I was lucky enough to get my short list part-time position. And right now, I work for Shenandoah County Public Library 3 days a week, and that's all I want to do. But it is a lot of fun. I do it for free, but I don't tell them that. And along the way, I've been married twice. The last one for about 38 years. I've got 4 children. All of them went straight through and graduated from college. Took me a while.
They learned a lesson.
Yeah, and they're all productive. Got a couple of teachers, some and others, but 4 kids. I've got 6 grandchildren and another one on the way. And I live in Shenandoah County on about 35 acres, and with some horses and dogs, and so. And that's my life in a nutshell.
So before we have the next question, I think the microphones can move. So if you just have a question but you don't want to get up and get in line, like wave your hand, get the attention of the people with the microphone, and eventually they'll get to you. Then we have one. I think we have a question from the lady right here.
Yeah, I'll slide up. Good evening. My question is, I know some of you talked about the community that you lived in where there was like academic training prior to integration, whether it was Swanson or Stratford, and you talked about the training that took place from parents to community members and such. Looking at the entire process that you've gone through and the state of Arlington education today, would you say that it was all worth it to get to where we are today?
For me, yes, absolutely. I've had kind of many and varied experiences in my life, and the experience of integrating Stratford and and even though there were many tensions, it wasn't all peaches and cream as far from a mental standpoint, but it prepared me for the life that I have, and I'm very happy. So it was definitely worth it, absolutely. I'd do it again.
I would, excuse me. No, go on. I would also say that it's worth it coming from a different perspective, you know, someone who, I spent 38 years in the Arlington Public Schools as an employee, and I can see that, I mean, Arlington's such a great school system, and I don't live in Arlington, but when we were given the opportunity many years ago, we had the opportunity to bring our children into the county, I made sure I did that. The opportunities that we have here with this small school system, and believe it or not, it is still a small school system. There are so many opportunities, and I have been able to see it from many different directions as a student, as a teacher, as an administrator, as a parent. And so I think that the experience of integrating the schools and the things that we learned along the way, the things that folks in the school system learned along the way, those have all made a difference as we have developed into productive citizens.
Okay, I'd just like to say.
I also can say the same. Although I did not myself personally go completely through the Arlington school system, my 3 grandsons did go through the Arlington public school system, and I have 2 great-granddaughters who are now in the Arlington public school system. And I think it's one of the greatest school systems in the world.
Okay. I'll echo everyone else's feelings, sayings, but I have to say this. There was mention of they're preparing us socially and academically to acclimate to Stratford, before we integrated. But I've got a story that I like to relate. My first week there in an English class, we had an English grammar assignment where we had to go and, go home, write a bunch of sentences, for sentence structure, parts of, they had to do with parts of speech, verbs, adverbs, nouns and stuff, and subject and predicate and all that stuff, and bring it back. So I went home and I spent hours. This is the first week, first assignment. I spent hours. I looked at the thesaurus. I did everything, and to write the most eloquent sentences I could think of. Something that I said earlier to make Lord Tennyson proud. Went to school the next day and I think it was Miss Bowman, who was our GE general ed teacher, had the students stand up and read the sentences, and break it down. And then people started reading the sentences like, he hit the ball, and the cat ran out. And I realized these kids are as dumb as I am. So that was a wake up. But the thing, but the reason I said that is because I think our elementary school teachers at Langston, and Michael mentioned them, really prepared us. And so even though it was segregated, we had it's a testament to Arlington County schools. And so whether it's integrated or not in that time, but that's about it.
Okay, we got another question over here.
Yes, I'm a historian, and I just wanted to ask you if you all, I'm sure you've thought about this, if you're aware of just how profoundly all of you have changed history in such a positive way. And I congratulate you and thank you for your courage that you had then as young kids and for all that you did to really, really change history in a very positive way. My kids went to school here and both graduated. One graduated from Woodlawn and one graduated from W&L. And I didn't really realize that I was too young at the time to realize until I came out here and I saw the historical marker that's out here in front of the school about what actually happened here, 57 years ago in 1959. And it's powerful. It's a powerful turning point in the history of the United States. My question is, how come it was just 4 of you? How did it turn out to be just 4, and why this school? Why not W&L, and why not 40 students? How did it come to be that just you 4 and at this school?
And just in the interest of trying to get more questions, if like just one panelist could take that question, that'd be great.
I'll answer that very quickly. Originally, there were 30 plus students in the initial suit. Because the way the political structure was at the time, these students had to jump through hoops to prove that they met the criteria to be allowed to desegregate the schools. And they went through, I think it was 34, 36 students, and Lance, Ronnie, Michael, and Gloria were the only 4 that the schools could, or the courts could not turn away.
Okay, I think we have a question over here.
Oh yeah, Lance just reminded me they had psychological evaluations and a myriad of things, tests that they were put through. I mean, it was really rigorous for several years that these kids and their parents went through this process. And at one point during the court case, the judge took a vacation, which just prolonged the decision even more.
Question?
Hi, my name is Catherine. I graduated from HB in 2009, and I remember I used to sit at the gazebo and I would read the plaque that's out in front of the school about, this day 57 years ago, and I would always wonder about what that day must have been like for the people who came to school, and to actually hear from you personally is really exciting. I feel really grateful to be here, and I'm really thankful for you guys to share that with everybody. So thank you. As you were telling your stories, I was wondering a lot about your personal experience. You were talking about your first day and week and months, and I'm curious, when you first came to the school, how did it feel to be, only 4 African Americans among a sea of white people in this school? I mean, I can't imagine, and so that's why I'm asking you. And I'm also wondering, did you develop any friendships with, did you develop any other friendships with your white peers, or did you stick mostly to yourselves? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
I can say that first, especially in the first year, there were not too many friendships we made. Like Ronnie indicated before, we had students help us to guide us around the schools, to help us with things like that, show us where things were, and eat lunch with us. But in the first year, I would say there were no lasting friendships like that. But as time went on, we developed friendships with various students throughout after Stratford or W&L, and we ended up going to the reunion. We had was it 50? 50-year reunion in 2014, and we went and saw, a lot of people went to Stratford, and W&L went, and we made a lot of friends since then. So maybe the first year, we didn't make a lot of friends, but since that time, in later years, we love friendships that we have at the present time.
Okay. Is there another question on that side? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We'll go over here. Yeah.
Hi, one of you mentioned that when you started at the school, you were only 12 and you didn't fully realize and comprehend the role that you were playing in history at that point. What age were you, or what stage of your life were you in when you did realize the role that you played in history?
I can say, in my case, definitely was into the 40s. I don't think I really totally grasped it, the importance of, in fact, every year it becomes more and more impressed on me. But I don't think I really sat down and thought, wow, this is really a pretty big deal. Probably until we had a 50-year celebration of Brown versus the board, and so that was like in 2004. Not that I didn't know about the importance. In fact, my children have done projects at school and that sort of thing on it, but that was of their own volition. It wasn't because I said, oh, you'll do this project, but I mean, they, upon knowing the story, they wanted to do it. And, but it's gotten more and more significant every year, and so that's...
For me, it was when I saw the film tonight.
That's a late bloomer.
I'm a late bloomer, yeah.
And then, is there a question over here? Yeah, okay.
I'm curious about how quickly things changed after 1959, like in the decade after. I was born in 1959, and I went to Arlington schools all the way through from first grade, went to Stratford, went to W&L, and I went to school with Carmela Hamm. Hi, I'm Ellen Fox. How you doing? I don't know if you remember me. So I'm wondering if, Carmela, if I can ask you to tell us what school was like for you not that long after.
Well, with me, in terms of the integration or desegregation process, that occurred in 1966 as I entered into the second grade. The county came through our community, and literally Cameron Street, where I grew up, people on one side of the street went to Cherrydale, people on my side of the street went to Walter Reed Elementary, and people at the bottom of the hill went to Woodlawn. And then I think there were a few that went to Jamestown. My experiences, I guess I was prepared for this at birth, so to speak. My mother was pregnant with me, like Michael's mother, during the time that this was going on. And although I was not born until 3 months after the first group of kids went into school, it was a big topic in my household, because there were still things. When I was 4, my mother was arrested for picketing the Old Dominion Theater on Glebe Road. So this was, it was a continuous fight. It's not something that just happened and ended after 2 or 3 years. It took actually decades for us to get equality. And in some instances, it's questionable whether or not that exists completely in this day and time. But it was, for me, it was a very different kind of experience. It was a little scary at first. Most of the kids in my community went to Mother Goose Nursery School, which was an all-black nursery school. Well, like with my brothers, my mother took me to Rock Spring. I was the only black in the nursery school class there. Other than the fact that on one occasion, the kids went into a little playhouse they had, clubhouse out in the back, and they went in and shut the door. I vividly remember this. I was 4, and I wanted to go in, and they wouldn't open the door so I could go in, so I attempted to climb in through the window, and one of the little boys took a shingle and beat my fingers with the shingle, and it splintered off into, and was, I had to go to the emergency room to have it removed from my hands. Other than that incident, I don't know if it was just kids being kids or if it was racially motivated or because I was different than they were. But other than that incident, I really don't recall anything of, significance that occurred.
Do we have time for 2 more questions? One over here.
Ronnie, you mentioned that you were a firefighter in Arlington. I'm curious to know which fire station you were a part of.
Actually, now we're talking about, this kind of relates to the question of, did I benefit from the integrating desegregation of the schools? The fire department. When I joined Arlington's fire department heretofore, before that time, had been basically segregated. Halls Hill Fire Station was the black fire station. Everybody there was black. All of the other fire stations were white, and they were white. Now, there was mutual aid. I mean, white fire stations on a big fire in Halls Hill, they would come there, and vice versa. However, as far as station living, the stations were segregated. The year that I joined Arlington Fire Department was the year that they integrated the fire department. There's some white firefighters went to Halls Hill Fire Department, and I was the first and only black stationed at Clarendon Station. And so my year with Arlington Fire Department was, again, going back to Stratford again. So, but it went on actually even with Fairfax, because when I joined Fairfax Fire Department, I was the 5th black in Fairfax Fire Department, and at that time, and this was '73, there were about 550 firefighters, and then I went on, I was the first black officer and so forth. So I'm saying it was, Stratford has kind of gone over and over a number of different times in my life. So, but it's all good.
All right, we got one more question over here.
Hi, good evening. I know you guys have spoken a lot about the impact of the community in your development as adolescents, but one of my interests is in some of the things that occur over the lifespan that impact identity development, and at the time in which you guys had this experience, it seems like it was during a period of a lot of your formative years. So my question to you is, how would you say this impacted your identity? When you have to ask the question of who am I? When you look back on this stage in your life and your stage of development as adolescents, how does this significantly impact who you say you are and how you've adapted, during that phase of acculturation, moving from one environment to the next in the school system?
Yeah, just one. That's a pretty deep question. So, that's a very deep question. So if one of you just want to get on the couch and. No, but if one of you could just answer that would be great.
I'm not sure if I can answer your question, but I can say this. As far as identity is concerned, I am my parents' child. And I say that because, the community, it was a community effort, but I distinctly remember my parents being supportive of, of all of us, my brother and my sister and I, my brother and sister out there in the audience somewhere one day. But, and they gave us a choice, because I joined the suit, but my brother didn't want to because he wanted to stay at HB. And so she said, that's your decision. But I remember my dad saying, I want you to get an education. And the best education you can get. And they instilled that into me because he was a janitor, and he said, I want you to go a lot further than I ever did. And that stuck, and that defined me, I think. And, they're no longer here, but I can say that they prepared me well, and they are a part of my identity.
Yeah, I guess we still have time if you all just want to, Michael and Ronald, if you all just want to keep it short on that question.
Okay.
We have time for both of you to answer it too.
Okay, somewhat like Lance said, I am who I am, number one, because of my parents and my brothers and sisters. We have a pretty close-knit family. I got a couple sisters back there now. And we, even though it was a large family, we all helped each other, supported each other in whatever we did. Also, because of the community I live in, we have a close-knit community at that time, Halls Hill, in which, like I said, no matter what happened at school, we could come home and get support from the community about churches and other people living in the neighborhood. And I guess Arlington as a whole, because this also happened because of Arlington coming together, different groups coming together to make this happen. So Arlington as a whole also made me who I am and made the situation what it was. So I benefit from those things, my parents, my initial community, and Arlington as a whole, and Northern Virginia. So all those make me the person I'm happy to be today.
I really don't know whether or not the desegregation process helped, define me as a person, or whether my personality was somewhat set, when I came to Stratford. But I think it certainly a sort of imprinted or continued with my normal personality. I'm a pretty patient person, and I think I learned a little bit more patience. Also, I'm a person that just kind of naturally looks for the other side of an argument. Sometimes that can be very annoying to people. And because, I play devil's advocate a lot of times, even when I absolutely agree with what they're saying, but I think that the other side needs to be, illuminated as well. Some of that probably came, and some of that was just my natural personality, but it is kind of, it's helped me. I mean, I was a supervisor in the fire department for many years, and my style was such that a lot of times people who were having difficulties kind of were sent to my shift with the idea that if Ron can't straighten this person out, then nobody can, and because I was a very patient person and a person always willing to give a person a chance, regardless of what they might be presenting to the rest of the world. So I don't know if that was caused or whether that was me and it just became accentuated because of the various experiences that I experienced in desegregation in the schools.
All right, let's give a hand to the panel. Thank you very much. So before everybody leaves, we've got some closing remarks from Craig Syfax, president of the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington, and Karen P. Nightingale, president of the Arlington chapter of the NAACP, followed by some final remarks from the school board chairman, Dr. Violin Sanchez. So if you all want to, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. We bring you greetings from the Arlington NAACP. I'm missing it all tonight. We're excited to stand here today, 57 years to the day, February 2nd. And the history that we have heard tonight, the history that we are reliving tonight is just invaluable. This is not something that you could just read about. This is something you had to witness. As we come to celebrate tonight, it's been awesome, but we can't forget that with the celebration, we must educate. As Deacon Taylor would agree with me that we have to know our history and teach and educate our history to be able to know where we're going. So the Arlington NAACP, we stand in agreement with the Arlington School Board and the county and all of the other distinguished guests tonight that we thank you all for coming. We appreciate your change in history, your time in history, and we have been benefited from everything you all did, even if you didn't know it. So I would not be standing here today, let's be honest, if you did not make those steps 57 years ago. So we thank you on behalf of the NAACP. We thank everyone for coming. Thank you so much.
This has been a very great evening, has it not? First off, I want to say that documentary was very, very well done. Very well done. And I'd like a copy for the Black Heritage Museum. The Arlington Public School System, which I am a product of, I am very happy to say that it has done everything. It has done events like this, which bring openness to situations and put Arlington on the map. Arlington Public Schools, I came through, everyone in my life was a teacher. Everywhere I went, anywhere I went, I was taught. People who didn't even go to Arlington schools, but just came to the community or the area, they had something to teach or something to show you or something to bring you up and make you an individual and a good person. I'd like to say, Mrs. Martha Miller, we owe you a great gratitude, a lot of gratitude. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all you've done. And the Black Heritage Museum is glad to be sponsor of other things like this, and we plan to do more in the future. Thank everyone for coming out, and thank you again.
I just want to say gracias y buenas noches. Good evening. Thank you very much.
There's going to be a light reception out in the lobby here for everyone who wants to enjoy that. Thank you very much again.